When you think of New England, what comes to mind? Fall leaves, quaint little towns, maybe lobster? All of that is wonderful. But what about direct democracy on steroids? Today, we'll look at what happens when a state decides to remove county governments and why they did so. In the United States, there's often this idea of how governments are supposed to be structured. At its most basic, this just includes a pyramid of federal, state, and local institutions. However, what if I were to tell you that some states don't follow this architecture to the letter anymore? Only 2 states have fully abolished county governments, Connecticut and Rhode Island. Today, we'll speak about Connecticut, a state that people like to joke isn't really a state, but a collective of 169 fiefdoms agreeing to call themselves a state for simplicity. The first thing I think we need to get out of the way is the concept of a town meeting. Here's a quick history lesson. Town meetings in New England go back to the 17th century, when the community at large would come together to elect their representatives and discuss matters important to the town. The idea that a township could rule within itself, for itself, was novel for the time, and that local sense of autonomy has persisted to this day. In modern times, the town meeting is a time in which communities will come together to elect their board of selectmen, pass budget legislation, and in certain communities, pass zoning legislation. It's no different really than the current system as established in the 17th century, but today it acts as more of a check on local officials and a vote of confidence. At least in Connecticut, there's no land that falls out of a town's jurisdiction, and so you end up with no geographic area in which a county government can control or operate. In some larger towns, the Board of Selectmen is more of a city council position. In others, the daily administrative functions are held to a town manager. In Connecticut specifically, the title of First Selectman is often voted on separately by secret ballot or by simple majority vote, and acts as an executive among executives. Originally, the position was either the most senior member or the candidate with the most votes. Of the 169 towns in Connecticut, 113 have retained to this day some form of a town meeting system as their form of government, with the oldest towns in that group, Thomaston, being established in 1875. So, why have county governments in the first place if local governments are so entrenched? Well, managing the things that a town can't, like jails and courts. County governments in their height had power over county jails, liquor licenses, to own homes for the disabled, send widow benefits, and maintain bridges between towns. These are things that it was assumed could be better handled regionally by a larger county authority. A town of 1,000 to 20,000 people can't really support a jail system on their own, but a regional unit certainly could. County governments were usually run by an appointed 3-person body and were often at the mercy of state governments who could change their responsibilities and areas of control at any time. A fourth position of a high sheriff, yes, the actual name, also existed, an analog to what a county sheriff would be in the rest of the country. But when you call emergency services, the town police would be the ones to come out. Eventually, the positions surrounding county government executives were positions of political favor rather than political necessity. In other states, you might have a vote for county commissioner. In Connecticut, the only vote you had at the county level was the high sheriff. Even for the position of high sheriff, though, the elections weren't established until 1838. Everything else was handled either locally by your town or at the state level. You can begin to see the problem, right? In 1959, the decision was made under Governor Ribicoff to finally abolish the county system, which was enforced as of autumn 1960. Local governments by this time were running their own hospitals, their own ambulance services, water treatment facilities, sewage. In lesser populated areas, you had joint police forces. So something working in favor of abolishment was that in Connecticut, no land, as stated before, was unincorporated. Every scrap of land either belongs to the town, the state, or a private individual. Notice also that none of the duties counties had obtained ever inclined levying taxes, maintaining court records, airports, education, or other levers of power that you may expect in other states. According to a Connecticut government commission formed in the 1990s to discuss the impact and rationale behind removing the county system, responsibilities of county governments as of 1959 included jail keeping, maintenance of state courthouse buildings, inspection of weights and measures, adjustment of road disputes, and administration of certain types of trust funds, such as cemetery trust funds. When compared to their counterparts in the South, Midwest, or West Coast, county governments in Connecticut had a very limited scope of powers granted to them, with local laws having more impact on people's daily lives. There wasn't a lot they could do. Perhaps as a sign of things to come, on the repeal of Prohibition in the 1930s, rather than returning the power of granting liquor licenses to the county government, the state legislature opted instead to create a state body to regulate the sale of liquor. Without the county system in place, there is still a need for regional cooperation in some official capacity. The state has created councils of governments, bodies made up of local executives to meet and coordinate strategies for their region. These councils are able to apply for grants and thus generate some kind of revenue for their locality to get joint projects off the ground. Unlike the former county system, these new constructions are in effect voluntary. While every town is a part of one, at this rate they maintain autonomy in almost every sense when it comes to the daily life of the public. They can choose to take part in a regional project or propose something, but it isn't necessary for the daily operation of the town, so it's very touch and go. Despite the very much spread out nature of Connecticut in terms of regionalism and local autonomy, is that there are areas where people do tend to cooperate and want regional cooperation. Mostly these are in the areas of attracting businesses. The Naugatuck Valley region, for instance, in 2008-2009 was given the All-American Town Award in part because they did regional development and attracting businesses. Additionally, many towns that are smaller, like Easton or Orange, or towns you probably never have heard of really, do have regional schools for most, if not all, of their education. I know Easton and Orange, for instance, used to bus students to other towns in order to get their high school education. This was before, of course, they built their own schools. So it's not uncommon for there to be regional cooperation. You know, people do tend to have a mindset of, okay, if we need to help you, we'll help you. But it is very much a case of, well, we in Town A believe that we have built up our money, and we believe that we should use our money as we deem fit, which is fine if you don't then have a town next door that has 30 kids in a classroom and still uses blackboards in 2020. That kind of wealth disparity perpetuates itself because of the lack of regional cooperation. That is one of the downsides. Additionally, magnet schools have been developed, which, as I understand them, you need to sort of test into them or get selected by a lottery. Again, it depends on the school, depends on the locality. The idea is that you don't have to be in a certain school district or be from a certain town to go to one of these schools. But yeah, no, there are developments slowly working and slowly moving. The state is not stagnant. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a wonderful day. If you have any comments on anything I got wrong, anything you think I should have covered more, please let me know. If you have any suggestions for what I should cover next, please please leave them down in the comments below. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe, like the video if you enjoyed it. Hope you have a great day. See ya.